way back in the 80s.
I got a job as a contractor for a department within British Gas, replacing all the field marker posts at hedgerows and road crossings that showed the direction of the high-pressure pipelines. A really easy job to do. After the first week, the manager pops out to see us and complains that we are going too fast in, making his guys look bad because we are doing 3 times what they usually do. He asked us to slow down. So for the next 4 years we worked 2 days for them and then used their van and tools to go do side jobs for various people and earned almost 3 times what they were paying us, just so the direct labor guys didn't look bad. My brother got a subcontract as a scheduler to handle some job with a British power company. Maybe they were replacing a turbine. It was supposed to be for 3 months, but it ended up taking 9 months because the firm's employees were so slow. He said some would clock in then climb the fence to go to a put. He read a lot of novels while there. Correction. Go to a pub. In my current country, if you work for the government, you're frowned upon as a new guy if you work harder than older workers, because you make them look bad. They're paid way higher than other office jobs of the same level and they don't want to work. They do the least possible, making people waste their time waiting to be attended. My uncle used to own a logging company. He started out paying his guys by the hour but was sure they could work harder. Turned out he was right. He started paying them by the tree, and they cut about 4 times as many per hour. The only time he went back to hourly wages was when a few idiots went against advice to check out a wildfire. As soon as the crews discovered they could run chainsaws and worked for a logger with a forest service permit, who was required to provide workers for fires if needed, they were handed chainsaws and recruited to clear fire lines until the fire was mostly put out. They'd run one saw out of gas, be handed another, and so on. They worked 24 hours a day until they dropped. My uncle pretty much only hired workers in their 20s, so they lasted a few days at a time. Word spread, and none of his workers ever visited a fire again. Also in the 80s, while a student, I had a summer job working as a laborer with a plastering team. There was a housing estate being built and we would move in once the joiners had framed up the inside and we would fit plasterboard, US drywall, tape it and skim the joints. Well, they did. I lifted stuff, carried stuff, made tea and tried not to screw up. The planners gave us a time target to hit that was about 3 times too long for the job. We pointed it out but the planners were never wrong, and we were being paid by the hour and not by the house, so we had our work done by Tuesday and played cards for the rest of the week. Also that the planners would not have to admit their mistake. Reminds me of something I already posted here previously. In short, my mom co-owned a clothes shop when I was a teenager, and they had to do inventory, count every item currently on store shelves and write it down on an Excel sheet. I wanted the then new Game Boy Advance SP and my mom said if I helped them do that I'd get my Game Boy. So I said sure. Took me about 3 hours to get into the rhythm of things. And then I was already faster than anyone they'd ever had to do it. One regular employee going through the shelves, calling out the brand and item and amount and price, and me writing it all down. Taka taka taka. Next item please. I was writing them down quick enough the employee didn't need to pause between items and we finished 70% of the store in one day. Next day my mom tells me she's been going over the numbers and I'd be earning too much money. I ask her what she means, and she said every worker is earning X amount per hour. And at the rate I'm going, hourly speaking, I'd be the highest paid employee they ever had. So she said I'd be paid the same hourly rate everyone else was getting. I did the math in my head and that amount really did not add up to a new Game Boy at the speed I was going. So I maliciously complied. First day I got 70% done. Second day I crawled to a stop and got almost nothing done. A lot of, can you repeat that? A lot of, hold on. A lot of, oh hey NetHack runs on this laptop. A lot of, wow Super Mario Brothers is hard with a laptop keyboard. Good thing this emulator has save states, and whenever my mom was the employee calling it out. A lot of, don't rush me. I'm being paid hourly. I had to go to the actual owner of the store and tell him, hey, my mom promised me X amount to do this, and now she wants to pay me hourly. You usually take a week to finish this. I'm 2 days in and nearly finished. Can you just pay me in full and I'll stop taking a second employee's time to do this? He considered this for almost an entire minute before just agreeing to it. I spent the third day quite happily finishing it all up before the lunch break. And since my mom drove us both to work, I couldn't leave early. So I spent the extra time making the Excel sheet nicer. Turns out they were using it a lot like a physical book and just writing stuff down. And at the end they were putting all the numbers into a physical calculator. So I made Excel add it all up. And even put it into a nice looking box with a few stats and such. Like how many items were from this year or that year, since that was relevant for tax purposes. A buddy of mine who owned his own lawn business for 20 plus years just got canned from a local water district because he was working too fast. He got back to the office after his first day on his own and they asked how many repairs he had made. Answer: 24. Everyone else was averaging 3 per day. Cash side jobs, I hope, and you got away with it for 4 years. I had a summer job once near Miami, replacing fuses with circuit breakers in cable TV equipment, mostly underground, some up poles. Job paid $7 per replacement. And that's after everyone up the ladder took a cut. I could do 50 on a bad day. And there weren't many bad days. I work at Google now. And that job was still my best paying job ever. Real easy to make a profit when all the equipment and transportation are provided. Low overhead and all XD since this was before the days of attached GPS. OnStar. And other such items. They wouldn't have had any way to track you unless they happened to see you. As a Boilermaker apprentice working on a nuclear test site, late 1980s. On our first day we received a simple assignment. On a scaffold about 30 feet tall were 2 pipe flanges that needed to be connected with 8 5/8 bolts. We hustle up there. Done in no time. About 2 hours later the supervisor comes by. We with our legs over the scaffold are eating part of our lunch. He yells up, how is it coming? We reply, we have been done for over an hour. Up he comes. He is not happy. He tells us this job and associated paperwork and inspections was to last us all week. We took it apart, counted the threads, made it perfect multiple times. At the end of the week the inspector comes by. Loves our work. This went on job after job for 6 months before we got laid off. Most boring job I ever went on. Full union scale and benefits, working 6 to 10 hour days. The 80s were an interesting time. I had a manager take me aside at one point, telling me that they could not justify my salary if I finished all the work. I'm not sure I finished another project in the next 5 years. Mind you, this was a result of them contracting me to another team in the same company. I kept the team happy, and that's really all my management wanted. One time as a student I got a city job for the summer. It paid much more than previous jobs. So of course I was nervous the work would be that much harder. Oh, how the opposite. Was assigned to a truck with an senior worker. We spent the first week driving around the city really not doing anything. Just looking at things like checking sightlines and things in the city that could be a safety concern. Also stopping at fast food places and drinking lots of coffee. On the third day he said we should do something, so found an intersection with some gravel in it. I got a push broom and swept up the gravel in about 5 minutes. On the fifth day my partner says, "Boy, you know there is a pillow behind that seat of yours." I told him, "Damn, you could have told me that sooner." Worked at an office once. Used Word, Excel and access to automate the process even more. Text files just had to be entered into their database from clients daily. My trainer hated that I got done with work in a fraction of the time and would spend time playing RuneScape or something after having asked if there were additional work available. Got bored real quick and was eventually let go after installing and playing additional games, instead of reading or just twiddling my thumbs for 7 hours. Early in my career I was a data entry droid. Nobody else of the half dozen of us knew about copying and pasting our, God forbid, macros. My numbers were usually twice that of whoever was in second place. I showed them how to cut and paste. Most of them got it. But a couple of the older folks weren't having any of that. I knew it wouldn't do any good to tell them about macros. Although I would have if anyone asked. They didn't. So I got really good at Minesweeper just so I wouldn't make the older folks look bad. I used to be paid by the hour, with an easily achievable target. I hit that target and not much more. Was fairly average. Now I am paid more if I do more, and suddenly I am doing more work as I am incentivized. Downside to this is that safety across the company is lower than it was. About 20 years ago, one of my first jobs in IT was on-site PC repair, help desk for a state-run telecoms company. Monday I take a look at my job tickets and just start working through them. Had them finished by the afternoon. Next day the same. Thought nothing of it. Got called into the manager's office and got given out to for making his guys. All 30 plus years in the job in one form or another. Look bad. Was told the jobs you get on a Monday should last all week. Coasted in that role for a few years and then was paid a year's salary in redundancy. Complete farce it was. I'm in the US. I worked for a city traffic department as I went to college, and it was the easiest job you could ever hope to have. The only reason it could sustain itself was taxpayer monies, because if it was private they would bankrupt within a year due to absolute inefficiency. A typical day started with a morning meeting to get your crew and task for the day, and then you meet in the garage for coffee before patrolling your route, which was code to drive around until you got a call from the supervisor to show up on site. We usually filled a few potholes or something minor and then patrolled until the shift ended. Some days we never even left the garage. Worked a factory job doing part inspection on the lines right before lockdown. When we switched item models, someone had to tap on a screen a couple times and then tell the fork truck guy to get the other part. Not hard at all. I was one of 2 people who didn't sit there and wait for a lead to do it. Most of my team leads loved me. I'd stay on it, catch problems early, keep the machine running. Had one of the best totals for goals. You know, there's always one. This one lead hated me on her section. I've got mild arthritis in both wrists. So there's a couple things I'd struggle to do. Hence everyone else setting me on inspection. She flat told me that I wouldn't last very long. She also went out of the way to make me feel bad for asking questions. So I stopped. Record numbers in anyone else's section. Below average for her. I laughed my $1 off after I heard from one of the other leads she got demoted pretty soon after I left. Something about not making goals. And being inappropriate with the male staff. Honestly, that was the easiest job for the most money. Only other issue I had was the ridiculous amount of OT. Would probably still be there if my girlfriend hadn't moved out of state. Y'all know I followed. How is this malicious? Workers unite lol. Back in the 80s. As in before British Gas was privatized in 1986 then? Or at least within a year or two after that, before the company had fully moved to a private sector. Commercial footing. I'm all for well-managed public sector services. But this is exactly the sort of inefficiency that builds up when there's no incentive to operate efficiently because the government is underwriting the operation. It's telling that British Gas plc reported a 42% increase in profit within 4 years of privatization without significant price increases. While I seem to have angered the Reddit hive mind by acknowledging that poorly run public sector services exist, I will point out that inefficiency can and does build up in large bureaucratic private sector entities too, and that well-run public sector industries do exist. They're just not the norm in the UK.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.